Welcome back to Carl Travels. I'm going to tell you the story of how I built a boat. Not just a boat, a houseboat. Yes, like a tiny house on a raft. The entire of this boat, not just the building, the furniture inside it, the solar panels on the roof, the engine, in total cost me $3,000. And it was €60 a month to moor that boat. And if I had moored it just on the river and dropped an anchor, it would have been free. I am not a professional boat builder. I had no clue what I was doing. Now, in no means was this boat anyway fancy. I literally followed some YouTube tutorials, and I am not a builder. I am not an electrician. I was just a person with a little dream and a little inspiration and a little craziness. And this is probably one of my favorite stories of all time. So back in 2014, I was living in an apartment in Berlin, and I was on the ground floor and only a 50-meter walk to the river. Now, in the corridor of my hallway, I had an inflatable boat. Almost every day, I'd take this boat out to the river and I would go rowing down the river, have a great old time, bring my guitar, bring my amplifier, and play some music, have some beers. It was a great time. And then one day, I remember seeing a houseboat go past, and I've got to say, I was very envious. And I said to myself, I would love my own houseboat. So I said to my friends, I'm gonna build a houseboat. To be honest, a lot of them didn't really take me seriously. They kind of made fun of me. Every time I'd see them, they're like, when are you gonna build that houseboat? When are you gonna build that houseboat? And I kind of get fed up of my friends like making fun of me. So I went to the German equivalent of Bunnings, which is like a hardware shop in Australia. And I bought 1,200 euros worth of wood. And I also went online and ordered 24 of those big blue plastic barrels that you store food or other things in. And when you spend X amount of money at this shop, they actually give you a truck to rent for free. So I took all the wood, I took all the barrels, and I went down to the side of the river. Now, I actually didn't have a specific place to build this boat. I had to get it done in one day. I'd asked a bunch of my friends, I said, hey, who wants to do something fun today? Who wants to help me build a houseboat? Now, I'd actually got the idea or the plans for this boat just off watching several different YouTube videos, and I kind of adapted my own version. So what I'd done is I had built two 3x3 meter platforms. Now, each platform had 12 barrels underneath them. I built one, put in the columns, put the flooring down, and then pushed that into the water on the side of the river. Then built another one, pushed that into water on the side of the river, then got in the river, bolted them together, built a frame, put the frame on top, bolted them together, and that was what I had done in one day. Now, don't get me wrong, I did have the help of about 12 people that day, and without those people, I couldn't have done this.
Boat build day 4. We have almost on the second roof. We have the first roof, second roof, some walls, and we will finish these walls on the back, and we'll finish this, and then we will put some doors on the front. But the engine goes here. We just have this away at the moment while we're building.
But the costs of doing this, well, it was $1,200 for the wood and $400 for the barrels. Now that's US dollars or euro. And then once I'd got that in the water, I was very lucky enough to secure myself a mooring. It was one of the last moorings available in Berlin at the time. And they measured the price of the mooring on the length of the boat. So the length of this boat was 6 meters long. So I only paid €60 a month.
A year ago, I started building the boat. I kind of went on YouTube and looked up how to build a boat. And so I found a couple of designs and brought all the wood and I got the barrels off eBay. I took it all down to the river and I had the boat on the water in one day with the help of a couple of friends.
Now there was no limit on the height of the boat, so I made the boat 3 meters high, which is quite large. Now, you would very much compare this to a tiny house. Now, when I actually had decided to build the boat, it was 2017. And look, first we get the boat on the water, we move it to the place, and then slowly over time, we would construct the walls, we would construct the windows, and then we would put insulation inside. We had solar panels on the roof. We had a little electric outboard engine on the back. And this was just like a tiny home that floated on the river. Now, it was very safe because if one barrel went, you still had another 23 to go. It wasn't like a normal boat where if you get a hole in it, the whole thing starts to sink. There are other pontoon boats which just have like one side and then another side. And then if that gets a hole in it, well, that could sink. But this was actually quite safe. Now, I actually ended up living on this boat for a short time, and it was kind of like my holiday home.
Welcome to my home. It's also called the Villa Kunterboot. As you can see, I have a nice big window. Here I have my makeshift kitchen. So I've got a little gas burner, one gas burner. A sink, which is not quite ready. Like I just got a table I found outside, flipped it up and put the sink on it, which runs into a bucket. But it's only temporary. For one person, it's enough. I have the essentials like a roof over my head, a bed, and electricity, and a camping toilet. But that's all I need. This is my home.
I did have an apartment in Berlin while I was building this boat, but it was a great little getaway, and it was situated right in the center of Berlin, in one of the trendiest suburbs, in Friedrichshain, just behind Ostkreuz. Or you could say Rummelsburger Bucht. That is the name of the area. So Rummelsburger Bucht is just behind Friedrichshain. If you know Berlin, there's this tower, I call it the Black Penis Tower, because it kind of looks like a giant black penis. But anyway, one thing I absolutely loved about this is that with Germany, they can be really strict on the rules, but at the same time, they can be really relaxed. That if you can find some sort of like loophole, they're very much like, we have to abide by the law. Sorry for my German impersonation. When it comes to abiding by the law, if you can find any law that's, well, slightly obscure or different, they will stick to that. And actually, when we were building the boat, a German police officer came up to us and said, "What are you doing?" Well, he said this in German, and I turned to him and I said, "Oh, I'm building a houseboat." And he was like, "Cool." Had this happened to me probably in Australia where I was living, well, actually, I could tell you a story about that. When I came back to Australia, I wanted to build something similar, and I went to the boating authorities and I said, "Hey, I used to live on this boat in Berlin that I built myself, and can I do something similar?" And this was in Cairns, and they basically just laughed at me and they're like, "No, you can't use barrels. You need a builder to do it. It needs to be made of this. You need this certificate." And it was going to cost me like $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 to do something similar, and I wasn't allowed to do it myself because I'm not a boat builder. But that's just red tape for you. But in Germany, this boat that I built, because the engine was an electric engine, and because the boat was 6 meters or under, it was basically classed as a canoe. And it didn't matter how wide it was, it didn't matter how high it was. That was the kind of like loophole. I love that I could do something like this. I actually had this for several years, this boat, and look, I'll show you some photos over time, how it slowly progressed and it got better and better. Sadly, I went away one winter, and while I was away, some homeless people broke into it, sadly. And they kind of trashed the boat. And like we have in Australia, if you see a trashed car on the side of the street, the police will put a yellow sticker on it. Then COVID happened, and I get a message from the German authorities saying, "Hey, you have 2 weeks to move your boat, otherwise we're going to destroy it." And well, I was in lockdown and I couldn't get back to Germany. So there was not much to be done, and essentially the police destroyed my home along with everything in it. Now, I don't blame them for this. I understand why this happens. We do the same thing in Australia. If you leave something that's been abandoned and if people have broken into it and started to trash it, that's understandable. It's just a shame that, you know, Australia wouldn't let me leave to go and, you know, get my home before it was destroyed. But that's another story, something I've forgotten about, and I just look on this as a funny memory of something amazing that I accomplished, and some of the most fun times I had. Bringing out that boat, we played concerts on the roof. You could sit on the roof, have a good time, looking out, feeding swans that would just come to my large window or doorstep. The entire of this boat, not just the building, the furniture inside it, the solar panels on the roof, the engine, in total cost me $3,000. And it was €60 a month to moor that boat. And if I had moored it just on the river and dropped an anchor, it would have been free. It's amazing that some countries let you do things like this. This is a story that I will cherish and I will always have fond memories of. And I always think back to myself, you know, what if I could do it again? What interesting stories have you done? Tell me about your experiences. Have you ever done something so crazy? In a future episode, I want to talk about van life versus boat life, because I've lived on a houseboat, I've lived on a sailing yacht, and I've also traveled around in a van. Look, I've experienced all these different types of ways of living. There's the positives, there's the negatives. It was great to try. Thank you for watching. There's another one of my absolutely wild stories of my life. But look, until next time, dare to be different. Dare to do something out of the normal. And maybe you'll have an interesting story like this to tell. Anyway, until next time, see you later.